For those of you, real quickly, you'll find as you research both the Joseph and the Jesus story that they're both the same. The stories are the same. One sold for 30 pieces of silver. We explained why. The other sold for 20 pieces of silver. We explained why. Both were cast into the pit. Both resurrected, became second in power, and so forth and so on. Joseph stays at the storehouse where he gives out the bread and corn. Jesus is the bread of life, and so forth. In the particular story as it came up to this point, Joseph's 11 brothers, because he is the 12. Now, the 12 brothers are the 12 signs of the zodiac. In addition, they are the 12 tribes of Israel, but they are the 12 tribes of Israel because they are the 12 signs of the zodiac. The 12 signs of the zodiac also match the 12 aspects of the human brain, 6 on each side. So everything is scientifically coordinated, one attached to the other. And Joseph and Jesus are both the sun. The sun in the sky, the solar energy within you that must be crucified as the sun passes through the cross so that it can rise and then sit at the right hand to activate the right hemisphere of the brain. Joan just got finished talking to you about what must occur. And in the beautiful part of the story of Joseph last week, his brothers came. And his brothers came asking for food and asking for help and asking for freedom. But they didn't realize that this Joseph was the same one that they had betrayed. Okay? Jesus was betrayed by his disciples, the brethren. Joseph was betrayed by his brothers. And so Joseph stands over these 10 guys and he looks down at them and he says, if you want to live, you have to bring the child. They did not bring the child, Benjamin. Benjamin was back home with Jacob, but Benjamin is that part within us that Joan was talking about. Benjamin is the child within us. Interestingly enough, the name Benjamin means son of my right hand. You cannot bring Benjamin of your own will. Only Benjamin can activate within you as the right hemisphere begins to activate through meditation. That's the only way to get Benjamin. And so Joseph keeps the brothers in jail 3 days. The number 3 is the number for resurrection and new life. And there's one reason. It was not arbitrarily decided, let's make 3 resurrection and new life. We'll put Jesus in the tomb 3 days and Jonah in the whale 3 days, and I'll keep the brother 3 days. The number 3 means new life because December 22nd, 23rd, and 24th, the sun sits in the bowels of the earth. It's called the winter solstice. And on December the 25th, the sun moves out of the bowels of the earth. It is resurrection and new birth, new life. So number 3 means new life. Joseph kept the brothers last week in prison 3 days. And so then we're activated to the point where we're understanding what we're talking about here is going to be something new. It's going to be something. Look at Genesis chapter 42. And if you get into between verses 13 and 19 is where Joseph places the brothers in prison 3 days and 3 nights. And on the 3rd day, he sends them to the father. He sends them to, send one of you in verse 16. Let him fetch your brother. You should be kept in prison that your words may be proved whether there's any truth in you. See? So you say, oh, I'm really into this. Oh, I really want to find God. Oh, I want to get out of the mess that I'm... Friends, after what you saw last week, how you could even consider that there is any hope out there for the way that this social system, social structure, governmental structure is operated is beyond me. Not only do you have people that wait until 9 o'clock until a nursery is filled with children to decimate a building, but you have the architect of the Vietnam War making hopscotching around from television channel to television channel, writing a book on which he will make millions of dollars and saying that the Vietnam War was a mistake. But at the point when guys were running to Canada to get away from it, they were traitors. 50,000 Americans get killed. 3 million Vietnamese get killed. And this guy who was one of the architects, I would say, oh, we made a mistake. I'm going to write a book. It's impossible. You can't be involved with it. Do you know what they're doing over there in Vietnam today? They're celebrating the victory over the United States. And they're bringing their little kids to look at the tanks and all the weapons that we tried to bring over there. And you know where they're having their big banquets and celebrations? In the Hyatt. The Hanoi Hyatt. Seriously. We went over there, 50,000 got killed, millions of them got killed, and they're building Hyatt Regencies and McDonald's and all of this stuff. They got Radio Shacks all over the place. For what? Oh, we got to stop communism. No, they quit it themselves. They quit it themselves. They won the war, and then they said, let's not do this anymore. Let's go and sell Radio Shack. Let's sell computers. See, you can't. It's bizarre. You've got to be guided by a higher sense. You've got to be guided by a higher force. So you've got to stay within yourself. And you've got to allow that which is within yourself to come to life. So Joseph said, you've got to bring the child. Genesis chapter 42, verse 20. Bring your youngest brother up to me, so your word shall be verified, and you shall not die. Bring the child. And who is the child? The child is that which separates you from your traditions, from your family, from the things you've learned in school, from your patriotism to your country, to all of these things. It separates you completely. You become an individual who then separates from the country, separates from religion, separates from everything, and opens your arms to the universe and says to God, I want to be part of the universe. I want to be a citizen of the universe. I want a oneness of all. So that's hard to do. It is very, very hard to do. It is extremely hard to do. I was watching some people on one of the religious channels on television yesterday, and there was a young lady talking to this guy about the New Age. And he had no idea what it was. I mean, to a certain extent he did. But she said, you know, I find a lot of things nice about the New Age. She said, and I want to be able to see how I can take part in some of the things that are good about the New Age, like dolphins and whales and meditating and everything, but I want to hang on to my heritage. Bad. That's what you got to get rid of. That's what you got to get rid of, because your heritage puts you at odds with people someplace else. And their heritage puts them at odds with you. You'll never meet them. You'll never share with them. You'll never sing with them. You'll never sit with them, because you and they are different. But once you bring the child and they bring the child, and this opens up from within, then you become part of nature. And so what Joseph says is, bring the child and live. Bring the child and live. And nowhere does religion understand this. Nowhere does Christianity understand this. The wounded child must be brought to the Christ. And this is done by totally separating. And when the wounded child, there is a new child who is born. A child who is born of a virgin. Why is a child born of a virgin? Because you cannot think your way into making this happen. The child is born by an impulse in you. When you go into meditation, you think, well, I don't know if I got anything out of it. You're not supposed to know. It has nothing to do with you. It has to do with the right hemisphere, which is out of your control. I don't care what thoughts go through your mind while you're meditating. As you sit and discipline yourself and tell yourself that you're seeking God, this virgin seed will impregnate into that virgin womb, and the little child, the Christ, the Buddha, the Krishna, the Joseph, will start to stir within you, and things will start to change, and the government will be upon that child's shoulder, and you won't think of things the way you used to think. You won't react to things the way you used to react, and all things will become new because the child will be born. Go to page 796, and let me show you something which Jesus said in Matthew chapter 19. In Matthew chapter 19 on page 796, in verse 14, Jesus said, suffer not. That means don't hinder the little children. Forbid them not from coming to me, for such is the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of heaven is made of the child. Where did Jesus say the kingdom of heaven is? In Luke 17:21. He said it's within you. You cannot find the kingdom of heaven by going to church. You cannot find it by joining a prayer group or by joining a denomination. You can only find it when you join deep within yourself. It's a very private, a very personal, a very lovely thing, a very loving, caring, compassionate thing between you and nature, between you and the God who dwells within you. But you find the child. So Jesus says, that is what the kingdom of heaven is made of. The kingdom of heaven is made of the child who dwells within you. The child who dwells within you. And the child who dwells within you knows nothing about prejudice, knows nothing about war, knows nothing about patriotism, knows nothing about rules or regulations or guilt or fear or any of those things that you've been taught. And all of those things you've been taught. All the child knows is that which is the instinct and the impulse of God. I said to people last night, I really love Billy Graham. I totally disagree with Billy Graham, but I find him to be a very compassionate, very kind, very warm, very good, decent man. But I'll tell you something. If I am sitting with Billy Graham, or I sit with my pussycat on my lap, I am closer to God with my little cat on my lap than I am with Billy Graham. No reflection on the man. It's just that there is a carnal mind. There is a lower instinct inside of every human being. It doesn't exist inside of a pussycat, because that's totally God. As that pussycat is filled with the instinct of that pineal gland, so is the child within. So is the child within. So now the brothers have a conversation among themselves. Joseph has said, you must bring the child. But he's not talking to brother. Folks, one thing I want you to get through, try to understand, this never happened. It did not happen. This story never happened. There was no reporter from the Asbury Park Press or the New York Times hanging around saying, what did he say? Did you hear what he said? Right? Nobody wrote that. Somebody wrote this as a parable, as an allegory, as a symbolic story of what goes on inside of your head. It is psychology written in allegorical form. Okay? It didn't happen. And so when Joseph is saying, bring the child, it is the Christ energy within you saying, you must bring forth that which is in the right hemisphere. You must allow that which is in the right side to activate. And the only way the right side will activate is when the left side stops. The left side must stop. And you shut down the thoughts of the mind. So the brothers have a conversation among themselves. It's most important. And it will teach you deeply about this thing of the child. And this is the aspects of the mind concerning the betrayal. Look, folks, in this particular case, Joseph was talking to his brothers. They wouldn't listen to him. They wouldn't consider the things he told them of the dreams and the visions and the spirit. They betrayed him. They betrayed him by saying, no, let's get rid of this guy. I can't deal with this guy. I can't deal with what he's saying. I can't deal with the things he's saying. It's not traditional. It's not our Father's way. Let's get rid of him. Jesus was saying things. Jesus was telling you things. And they said, no, we can't deal with this guy. Let's get rid of this guy. And Jesus told you, how should you find this place? How can you find this place? And I want everybody that's sitting in this room, if you don't mind, and those who haven't, those of you who have seen it before, fine. But everybody who hasn't seen this before, I want you to see what Jesus said to do. It's never been taught in religion. It's never been taught in Christianity. But I want you to see what your brother taught you to do. And I want you to see that you and I betrayed him in the same way that Joseph's brothers betrayed him. Watch what he said to do. Go to page 782 in the Bible, okay? Just a little bit of hopscotch around the Bible, but it won't take us long. It'll only take us a few minutes. On page 782, we go to Matthew chapter 6. And in Matthew chapter 6, verse 33, Jesus Christ said, before you do anything, I want you to seek the kingdom of God. I want you to look for the kingdom of God before you do anything. I don't want you to go to Sunday school. I don't want you to go to church. I don't want you to go to a Bible study. I don't want you to join a religion. I want you to seek first the kingdom of God. That's what it says in there. So we all stand up and we said, well, where is it? We don't know where to look. Where should we look? Is it in my pocket? Is it under the car? Is it in the toilet? I don't know where it is. Where should I look? Okay. So we have to have directions as to where we should look if we're going to seek first the kingdom. He was not slow to tell us. Page 853. Look at it yourself. Look at it yourself. Page 853. Luke chapter 17. Luke chapter 17 and verse 21. Jesus says they're not going to say it's here or there because the kingdom of God is within you. I want you to look within yourself to find that which is God before you do anything else. That's what your brother said to do. Okay? So you say, wow, okay. How do I do that? I can't get a stethoscope and put it in front and then stick it in my ear and see what's in there, because if I saw what's in there, I would run away anyhow. I don't want to see what's in there. Do you imagine you've never even seen what's inside of yourself? Do you know how you sit and you comb your hair? Comb your hair and paint and powder. Do I look good or what? You know? Put a little Just for Men on there, kind of tint down the gray a bit, go out, strut around. Can you imagine if you had a box and you could open it and look inside? You would run away. There's a monster and there's a mess in there. It's an absolute mess. Well, people say, oh, the Spirit. But something is in there. Some electronic impulse is in there. Electrical impulse that when you understand how it works, it's like going to a computer. When you sit at a computer and you don't know how it works, it is an absolute, it will drive you crazy. It will drive you to drink. You look at the book, it's Microsoft for Windows, and you open the book and you don't know nothing. You are convinced. And then another guy comes like AJ into the house. And he sits down and does all this stuff, and he pulls this down and pulls that down, and you say, how could he be so smart? How could he be so stupid? And AJ goes off, and I get the book, and I look, and it's all screwed up, and then it won't come back, it won't shut off, it won't go on, it won't do nothing. You hit every key on the board, nothing happens. What's going on? Because you don't know. In this thing is the most magnificent treasures of the universe, but if you don't know how to use it, it's a fakakta. Inside of us. That's what's being said. It is all here. don't you understand? When everybody on the planet Earth discovers this at the right side, the planet Earth changes to the planet Heaven. The thing that you've been wanting to go, the pearly gates, becomes right here. So you say to him, how do I do it? How do I find it? I don't know how to look. What do I do? And he tells you. Go to page 781. Page 781. What was that? I heard something. Matthew chapter 6. Here's how you do it. Matthew chapter 6. The light of the body is the eye. If your eye be single, your body will fill with light. He just told you how to do it. Your brother told you the most important thing for you to do is look inside of yourself and you'll find the kingdom of God. And he said, practice the single eye. Stimulate the pineal gland of the brain and you'll do it. Wow. And look what he says. Here's an Eastern expression. This is an Eastern metaphysical expression of meditation. Matthew chapter 6, you're on that same page. Go to verse 6. When you pray, enter the closet and close the door, and your Father who sees you in secret shall reward you openly. Entering the closet and closing the door means going into yourself and shutting down the thoughts of the mind. We have been to places, PTL in Jim Baker's place, where you went into a building and they had 65 closets. Everybody opened the door, went into the closet, closed the door, sat down and said something, came out more berserk than they were when they were in there, because God knows what they were doing in there, came out just as screwed up as they would accomplish nothing. They went into real closets. I'm telling you, and there are churches all over the place that have prayer closets, and the pastor say, go in the closet. You go in the closet, there's brooms in there, there's Windex in there, all kinds of crap in there, and you're going to straighten everything out. Okay, enter the closet. Now, what do I do when I go inside, when I practice the single eye? What will happen? This is what Jesus says, Matthew chapter 6, right where you are, verse 25, take no thought. Verse 27, why are you taking thought? Verse 31, take no thought. Verse 34, take no thought. You separate from the thoughts of the mind. He does not say don't worry. If you get a Bible that is a contemporary Bible which is going to explain everything to you, it's going to say don't worry. Try it. Try it. Absolutely is as impossible as eating cookies and curing fat. I'm looking for words. See, this is what I need to do. I'm on a diet, so I want to lose some weight. So I heard that eating cookies and fat ice cream and fat-free Entenmann's will help you reduce. The only thing with the fat-free Entenmann's is I eat the whole cake. The whole cake. Because if it's fat-free, then I want to get this in me and I'll reduce. It doesn't work that way. Okay? But this is take no thought. You're going to separate from. Look what he's told you. Look what he's told. Now listen to this. Seek within yourself. Practice the single eye. Separate from the thoughts of the mind. Now, what happens before he goes, oh, excuse me, Mr. Yahushua, Jehovah, Jesus, whatever your name is. Where'd you get a Greek name? Anyhow, let me ask you a question. I thought you were Jewish, right? I'm not going to ask any questions because I don't want to get involved, with this family stuff. Let me ask you a question. What happens if I don't do this? Wonder if I want to go to church and sing Amazing Grace. What a wretch am I? Is that a great song? Is this great to lift the child within you? And did you hear? Even at the poor kids' memorial, they all stood up and sang Amazing Grace. What a wretch am I? Come on with this. You're not a wretch. Beautiful people, wonderful people, evaluating themselves as a wretch. And here is what Jesus says is going to happen to you if you don't do this. Go to page 847. Luke chapter 11. And he's talking to the lawyers. And the lawyers are the people in the Bible who interpreted the law. And he says in Luke chapter 11, verse 52, woe unto you, lawyers, you have taken away the key of knowledge. Why? You entered not in yourselves, and them that were entering in you hindered. How clear does it have to be? You take away the key of knowledge because you don't enter within yourself. And if people say to me, how do you learn? Some guy came up to me, was in New York last night, he says, you are a genius. I got good writers. I said, how did you do that? What school did you go? I said, well, no school. I said, I got thrown out of schools. I really got thrown out of school. When I was a little kid, I was honest to God, I'll never forget, I was in a Catholic school, I was this high, and the nun looked at me and said, I'm afraid of you. That's the truth. I said, why? Because I didn't show up. I never used to go. I used to roam in the woods, you know. I mean, for 6 months, I didn't show up at these schools. And they were going to throw me out. I thought they were going to go to jail, and they'd shoot you and everything. But here's this massive church, and there's concrete and all of the stuff, and they got priests walking around and nuns walking around. And the one enemy in the whole place was who? Me. And they threw me out. And I wound up in an orphanage school. I didn't go in the orphanage. I was just about this far from that, too. But I went at an orphanage school. And there's a little Italian nun standing there. And these Italians, they had this big white thing on their head and this big white thing. And I was standing over in the corner. And I was really, if this didn't have happened, God knows where I would have wound up. Because I was mad at the world. I could have been the mad bomber. I was ready to blow the whole thing of the kingdom come. And this little nun looked at me, and she says, Stormy standing in the corner, sulking as I usually did. And she says, you know what, Billy? I says, what? She says, you and me are going to make it. And you know what? We did. All I needed was somebody to take a look at this whacked out kid who was a little weird and say, everything's going to be okay. And everything was. And I showed up from then on in. But here is this point that he tries to make. Within you is the kingdom. You practice the single eye. You'll separate from the thoughts of the mind. But if you don't do it, you're going to take away the key of knowledge. And so when the people asked me last night, how are you able to see these things? I say, it is given to me as a gift through the meditative process. The child tells me. Honestly. And that's where it comes from. And everybody will have a unique gift waiting for them as they touch that child within. But what did we say? Practice the single eye? That's a cult. Enter within yourself. Why, there's devils in there. Don't do that. My God, you'll turn your mind over. Stay away from that stuff. What did we do? The church, Christianity, religion, you and me, everything our brother taught us and told us to do, we betrayed his trust. And we turned our back on Yeshua, Jesus, and said, no, I can't do that stuff because I'm a Methodist, or I'm a Baptist, or I can't do this stuff. And this is considered a cult. What he taught is considered evil, occult stuff. Stay away from. People come in here and they sit in the back, and when I tell them what Jesus said, you know what they do? They get up and walk out. You see them, they put the Bibles back over. And out there, you know, and then up the stairs, they go out the door. Why? I told them what their brothers said to do. What has happened with Joseph? Joseph told the brothers what to do. The brothers said, get rid of this guy. Jesus told us what to do, and we said, get rid of this guy and get rid of his teachings. We betrayed him. Okay? Now I want to show you something about him being the brother. Just as Joseph was the brother to the 12, Jesus was the brother. Go to page 925. Page 925. Look at Romans chapter 8. Okay, page 925, Romans chapter 8. And look at verse 29. For whom he did foreknow, he did predestinate to be conformed to the image of his Son, so that he might be the firstborn among many brethren, among many brothers. He's your brother. He told you what to do, and we all betrayed him. We all turned our back on him. We all walked away from him and said, that's not the American way. I don't want to be a Hindu. I don't want to be a Buddhist. I'm a Methodist. I'm a Baptist. I'm a Catholic. I'm an American. And we don't want any part of this stuff. We don't want any part of this occult stuff. We betrayed our brother. Now go back to page 38. Okay? And look at what the brothers say to each other and then understand what this is about. Genesis chapter 42. Back to page 38. Genesis chapter 42. The brothers are talking among themselves. Okay? And in Genesis chapter 42, look at verse 21. And they said to one another, we are verily guilty concerning our brother, in that we saw the anguish of his soul when he besought us, and we would not hear. We wouldn't listen to him. And now his distress is upon us. The children are in a mess? Sure, they're in a mess. The world is in a mess. There's violence. There's torture. There's destruction. There's all kinds of evil running all over the face of the earth. It's exactly what this story is talking about. Why? Because our brother told us what to do, and we wouldn't do it, and his distress is upon us. He told us! Joseph told us, he told us, and everybody. There is not a person you can find, any church that they say Jesus is Lord, that does anything about these things that he said to do. In fact, they'll warn you to stay away from them. And Jesus said in Matthew 13, I speak to them in parables because seeing they see not, and hearing they hear not, neither do they understand. Genesis 42:21, we would not hear, therefore his distress came upon us. And the distress that comes upon the world today is because they wouldn't listen to Krishna, they wouldn't listen to Buddha, they wouldn't listen to Muhammad, they wouldn't listen to Jesus. And we are left with our own contrivances. We have a bunch of pastors. We have pastors in 1995 in the United States of America who are packing submachine guns in the Bible of Jesus Christ. We don't even think anything of it. What did Joan say a little earlier? What does Brad show us? What does the people say about this child who's in you? How important is it? Go to Genesis chapter 42 and look at Reuben. And Reuben answered them and said, didn't I speak unto you, saying, do not sin against the child? And you would not hear. Therefore his blood is required. We've brutalized the child. You hear about the wounded child. Circle that little scripture. What did Reuben say? Didn't I tell you? Don't hurt the child. That which is within us, we've brutalized it. And it's been brutalized by the things that have been taught to us by our parents, by the things that have been taught to us in our schools, by the things that have been taught to us in our churches, by our traditions, by our patriotism, by our religion. We have brutalized the child. And we are sitting in an absolute cesspool that we call civilization. And we even dispatch our religious people with these same Bibles in their hands over to places where people commune with the stars and try to teach them to be like us, called missionaries. We want you to be like us. Then you can someday get a job and afford to have a psychiatrist just like we do. Yeah?
But that child that we're talking about that is so brutalized is our false self. It's as we are now.
That's right.
And the true child that's within us is the healer. That's the Christ.
That's right.
We're the wounded.
That's right.
Okay?
That's
us,
right.
okay?
That's right. Well, you see, in this particular case, if you follow the story, Joseph is the wounded child.
Yeah.
Benjamin is the child of promise.
Right.
And
Right.
that's what
Right.
you're
Well,
talking
he's showing you the two
Why
parts.
don't you look at this?
Okay. He's showing
Doesn't she
us.
look cute today with her green? This is St. Patrick's Day. Go ahead.
St. Patrick's Day. He's showing us the two parts of us.
Right.
That these are the two parts of all of us.
Okay.
But see, everyone thinks that the wounded child is the child in here. It isn't. It's us.
That's right.
Okay? And we have, it's the false us.
It is. It's the Joseph who is betrayed.
Right.
And who are we betrayed? We're betrayed by ourselves. We're
Right.
betrayed by our system. We betray one another.
Right.
Every time you take a child into a Sunday school and teach them that these things are evil,
Right.
you're betraying the child.
Right. And
You're
we don't
brutalizing
teach
the
our
child.
children that here.
I absolutely agree.
Right. But we're all children. And
I
this
know.
is just so beautiful with this story because the analogy is that's the two parts of us.
That's right.
Yeah.
Very good, buddy. Very good. But Reuben, of course, also said, it was Reuben's idea, if you remember, to cast Joseph into the pit from which Joseph resurrected. So in that same way, that child is told that he must be separated from us. And look at Genesis chapter 42. And I want to show you a comparison here. In Genesis chapter 42, verse 24, Joseph turned himself about and he wept, and he returned and communed with them again. And how it reminds us, look, folks, how long have you been going to church? How long have you been a good old American, good old boy or good old girl, and you wouldn't go near any of this stuff because your parents and your church and everybody told you this is a cult, this is dangerous, you're going to get into your mind and mind games. How often were you warned about things like this? Stay away from things like that. But this is what page 801, leave your finger where you are, but go to page 801 and look at the book of Matthew and go to Matthew chapter 23. Okay, page 801, Matthew chapter 23. And this is what Jesus Christ taught you. And this is what your brother said to you. And this is what he tried you to find. Matthew chapter 23. And in verse 37, he says, "O Jerusalem, Jerusalem," and that's talking about that which is the bondage of the mind. you that kill the prophets and stone them, how often would I have gathered your children together, even as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, but you would not. You said no. How often have his words echoed off the pages of this book? It is within you. There is a beauty within you. There is a child within you. And yet our religions have taught just the opposite. This Christ said he dwells within us, John 14:20. At that time you will know I am in the Father, you and me, and I in you. Within you. But we taught that there's devils in you. There's demons. And all of these things that we've created out of the bizarre aspects of our mind. Until this very day they will not come under the wings of the Christ who dwells within them. But now here's a very important part as we wrap this part up. Genesis chapter 42 and verse 24. And I want you to look at it real carefully, because now Joseph is going to do something. There is a way that you have to be taken, and I have to be taken step by step very easily before we're going to bring the child. Things have to happen. It just isn't going to be done because we've been so, our parents talk to us, our wives or husbands talk to us. We're always warned by people. There are people up and down this highway that will warn you not to come near this place. Oh my God, you're liable to hear something. So you're not capable of making any decision. Genesis chapter 42, you see it there? Look at verse 24. He turned and he communed with them, and he took from them Simeon and bound them before he had. Simeon is taken hostage. This is very important. Simeon is taken hostage. Okay? But there's a reason that this has to happen if you were to bring the child, okay? The word Simeon means hearing. The Spirit, before you're going to be willing to come back with the child, is going to cut off the things that you hear. You know what I'm talking about? You're going to turn on the television and you're going to see a preacher, and you're not even going to be able to deal with it. It isn't going to make any sense to you anymore. The things that you listened to so attentively in the past, you can't even hear them anymore. You can't even understand it. You can't believe that's what they're saying. Your hearing has been cut away. Once your hearing starts to be cut away from the traditions of the system and the social aspects of your society, once those hearing is cut away, then you start hearing that child. You start hearing that which is the Christ who dwells within you, and you eventually will bring that child forth to God. So the hearing is... Now let me show you something very interesting and why it is so important that this hearing is cut off. Incidentally, you can get a Christian dictionary if you like by, I forget what the guy's name is, I'll tell you about it, which gives the identity and names of all of these people, what they mean. That's why it's so important. Page 628. We're almost done. 628, look at the book of Jeremiah. And this is what it means, cutting off your hearing so that you don't listen to those things that they teach as traditional religion anymore. In Jeremiah chapter 6, and you'll see in verse 10. You with me? Okay, Jeremiah 6, verse 10, it says, "To whom shall I speak and give warning that they may hear? Behold, their ear is uncircumcised, and they can't hear." In other words, your ear is very well healthy. You're tuned in. And he says, they can't hear. The word of the Lord is unto them on a reproach. In other words, the things that Jesus taught are considered evil. Oh, I'll tell you, folks, they don't like this particular Bible, this King James Bible. The one thing about this Bible is that it left the original language just the way it was. It didn't try to make it easy to understand. So they make it easy to understand. It's no longer in the Bible's contemporary, if your eye be single, your body will fill with light. It says, if you look on nice things, you'll be happy. That's what they say. Because they've taken the mysticism out of here. It's dangerous to have people. And I'll tell you something, it's very dangerous for them to have you discover who dwells within you, because then you're all of a sudden going to see that you're not dependent on anybody. You're not dependent on any group, on any country, on any denomination. You are dependent on that which dwells within you and will teach you the way to go. And so Jeremiah 6:10 says, whom can I talk to? Their ear has not been cut away. So we start to see the results of our meditation. We have this feeling. In Genesis chapter 42, page 38, Genesis chapter 42, verse 25, Joseph commands that their sacks be filled with corn. You're starting to feel better. You You're not totally into this yet, but you're starting to feel better. Things start to seem to be going pretty good, you know. And it says, restore every man's money. We begin to feel the results of meditation. In Genesis chapter 42, verse 27, one of them opened his sack and says, look, gosh, he said, my money is restored and things are getting good and I'm feeling good. In Genesis chapter 42, verse 29, the brothers return to Jacob, and the whole scene shifts back to the house where Jacob is, and they all sit down to talk. They recount their adventure and their encounter with Joseph. They don't even understand who Joseph was. But in Genesis chapter 42, verse 33, they call him by a name. Look what they say. The Lord of the country, the man, the Lord of the country, said unto us, hereby shall I know that you're true. Leave one of your brothers here, take this, and bring your youngest unto me. They instructed Simeon was kept. They are to return with Benjamin. But now here's the point where your mind, and some of you sitting here right now have a problem with what I told you. Some of you sitting right now have a problem with letting go of some of the traditional values. Because after all, if you get into this, what's your wife going to say? What's your husband going to say? What's your uncle going to say? What's the family going to say? What are you into? I mean, you were raised this, you should be this, I mean, you're an American guy or a girl, and who, if you hear you get involved with this, what are they going to think of you? It's very hard to do that. Many people won't let go of it. It's like, oh, my heritage. I can't let go of my heritage. You know, the ship is sinking. The ship is sinking. And as the water is rushing into their mouth, you were saying, I like this way I want, this the way I want, this the way I want. I believe this, I believe that. And so the teacher teaches you, and there they were in the Garden of Eden, two naked people running around with no shorts on. But thank God in heaven, along came a talking snake and told them, you don't have any pants on. Isn't that great how our God sent that talking snake to tell them they didn't have any shorts on? And what do we say? Hallelujah, brother, God, love it. Tell it to me, brother, tell it to me. In Genesis chapter 42, verse 36, it gets right down to the nitty-gritty of what I'm talking about, where you're asked to give up everything that you've been attached to, everything that is precious to you. I mean, come on, you're an Italian. Hey, you might be German or Irish. Oh, my God, I'm so proud of my heritage. What proud of what? You popped out on a pan one day. What did you have to do? Ah, looks like Uncle Willie. But look at Genesis chapter 42, verse 36. And Jacob said, you bereaved me of my children. I've lost Joseph and I've lost Simeon, and you'll take Benjamin away? I don't mind coming here, and I don't mind sitting and listening to you, but don't get too personal. I mean, I got my heritage and I've got my beliefs, and I was brought up and taught this way, and I've already lost Joseph and Simeon. It's a reluctance to give ourselves totally. Many New Age people have the same problem with this. They got to have a rock or smoke or feathers or whatever. They can't just allow themselves to realize there is an unseen force who is about to take them on the ride of a lifetime. Neither group believes that is the child within the absolute nothingness. In Genesis chapter 42, verse 37, Reuben says, look, kill my two kids if I don't bring him to you. Deliver him into my hand and I'll bring him home again. Reuben's saying, look, let me take Benjamin and everything's going to be okay. Believe me, everything's going to be okay. Don't worry about a thing. I'll bring him back. But the mind struggles with this. In Genesis 42, Jacob makes that statement that most of us make at time or another about this, and some of you are thinking about right now. How far will we go? And Jacob says in verse 38, my son shall not go down with you. Everything is gone. And I can't bear that. I won't go near that place, and he won't go near that place. And I'm closing the book on it. That's final. That's my final decision. The answer is no. And many of us have said that. I'm not going to get involved in this. I don't want to. What happens if I have an out-of-body experience and can't get back? Did you ever hear that one? Yeah, lucky you. Let me tell you a little bit. One of the brothers represents the spirit within you. And when we come back, and Judah stands at the table, and he looks Jacob in the eye. And Judah, who represents spirit, says, hey, I'll take him. And Jacob says, okay. And Judah, who represents the spirit, takes the little child up to Joseph. And Judah, the spirit, says, I have brought the child. I'll stay here with him. And Joseph looks at the spirit and says, I don't need you anymore. For I have the child. And then the flowers bloom and the storehouse is opened. For you and for your children. For the end of the violence that's in this world against all the children and against all. I mean, what we saw in Oklahoma, the brutality of it. It's a fraction of what's going on in Rwanda. And we don't plant trees for the kids in Rwanda, do we? After all, they're not Americans. See, you got to break from that. You willing to give that up? You willing to plant a tree for a kid in Rwanda? Little black kid with flies crawling on its face? You willing? Are you willing to make that as important as a kid in Oklahoma? And then pretty soon you become what God is, one who cries with all the children, with all the animals, with all nature. Are you willing? Are you willing to bring forth the child within you to embrace everybody? And to turn your back on nobody? And to erase all the lines of separation between countries and make it one? And to stand up and sing, not God bless America, but God bless the universe? Are you willing? It's hard. But as Joseph said, bring the child and live. And you have a spirit in you that has one purpose, and one purpose only. It's not to make you jump over the pews. It's not to make you get excited at a church service. It's not to make you say hallelujah or fall on the ground. It's for one purpose only. It is to bring the child to the Christ. And once that spirit within you brings the child, then that which is within you will say to the spirit, your job is done. I don't need you. For the child that was lost has returned. That my cue? Thank you very much for sharing this time on Joseph. Thank you. And we'll be back and we'll continue the story, and it gets better and better. And I would tell you, all of you who are here, I hope when we do the final Joseph story that you're here, because it has a sensational surprise ending. And thank you very much for being with us, and Joan will be here. We'll see you. Bye-bye.
Contact that child, that true you, that Christ that's within you. Then you come into a oneness with yourself, which is what you're saying. So then that false self isn't needed anymore. This hurt person, okay, this person that is wounded, this person who wasn't happy with themselves, is no longer there. The true you comes out.
That's
Okay,
right.
and you become one with yourself. Then you're one with the universe. Yeah, yeah. It's really
Right.
it's just so beautiful, because this knowledge inside of me didn't unfold until this trip with Benjamin.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can just see God just like showing us, like what. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
You know, I got a retention span that goes about that far. And then something else comes in this way and goes out that way. Man, I forgot what I was about to say. We're going to have meditation tonight.
You had a good day? Yeah, did you do any meditating today? See any squirrels in the backyard? What do you think of Frank? Well, say hello to everybody before you go back. Say hello to everybody. That's good. Oh, you want to go back to sleep now? Okay. Thanks for being on the show. I want to show how people how you meditate. You ready to meditate? Is that how you do it? Okay, we'll see you later, Chris.